Okay, so we're back here for part 2. We're on the back of the notes. And section 3, evaluate functions. Evaluate means to find the value, to get the number. So when we evaluate functions, in number 3 it says evaluate each expression using the following functions. A function is another way to write an equation. F of x is the symbol for function. It's not f times x. This is not multiplication. This is what we use to say function. If I write it, it's the same thing though as y. This equals the y value. So if I write it as f of x equals, it's a function. If I write it as y equals, it's an equation. But they're both the same. They mean the same thing. Now in this case, we have two functions. We have the f function. This is g of x. The way that we read this, we say g of x. Or I don't want to say equals. We read that g of x. Okay, it's the y values when x is equal to a certain number. So this is y equals, that's negative x squared plus 1. So we have two different functions. Now in A, part A, they say f of negative 5. F of negative 5. What they're saying is to take the f function, but instead of the letter x, the variable, now they're giving us a specific value to substitute. They're telling us, take negative 5 and evaluate the function for that. So 3 times x plus 2, well, the x value is negative 5. And then we work it out. So 3 times negative 5 is negative 15 plus 2. So f of negative 5 equals negative 13. That's it. We're not solving an equation. We are evaluating an expression. And in this case, it is a function. All right, f of 4. So what we'll do is we'll take the f function, which was, again, equal to 3x plus 2. Notice that I put parentheses instead of my variable. What's the number they're asking us to substitute? Okay, it's a 4. So 3 times 4 is 12 plus 2. And we get 14. All right, I'm going to skip around a little bit. How about g of negative 3? Now, in the g function, now they're telling us go to this function here, and that g of x is equal to the opposite of x squared plus 1. Notice how I put the exponent outside the parentheses, and notice the negative, I just copy that down here, also outside. So what's the x value? In this case, they're telling us take negative 3, evaluate this function when x is negative 3. So we'll substitute minus 3. Now, you got to be careful here. We're not going to do negative times negative yet. We have to do the exponent first. When you square a negative, we get a positive. So it's the opposite. It's that negative. This becomes a 9 plus 1. So negative 9 plus 1 is negative 8. And that's it. How about, we'll do f here, g of 0. Well, zeros are really nice because we're going to take the g function, which is the opposite of x squared plus 1. When we substitute 0, the nice thing is that zeros kind of wipe out. They get canceled. 0 squared is 0, and the opposite of 0 is still 0. So what we get is 1. All right, now the case where this might get a little tricky is question G here. F of question mark equals 8. Now remember, when you evaluate a function, you take an x value, you put it into the function, and what comes out of that is what we call the y value. So these are the y's that we're getting here. What happens though if they give us the y value and what we're missing is the x? So the question is, which x value do we substitute? What number goes into this function that gives us an outcome of 8? So what I'm going to do, the f function was 3x plus 2. They're telling us now the outcome. When we're doing a function, okay, I'm going to write this at the top. So I talked about the function machine. We take an x, we put it into the function, and what comes out is the y value. Domain is x, range is y. But you'll also hear the words input. That's what you put into the function, and what you get out of it is called the output. So you have input and output. Okay, so in this case, what value of x do I put into the function? Here's the outcome, the output right there. So we're going to solve an equation. So 3x is equal to 6, and then we divide, and the x value is 2. Now, if you're not sure that that works, we can take the function for f, and we'll substitute the value 2 and evaluate it. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 2. Does that give us the output? Yes, it does. That's 8. F of question mark. Now again, this is always f of x equals the y value. Now the y value is negative 28, so we make the equation. Here's the f function. They're telling us the output, the outcome is negative 28, and then we solve this equation. And we divide by 3, so the x is negative 10. If you're confused right now, this is okay. This takes a little bit of time to get used to. People get a little confused, especially with the symbols, with functions. But remember, the concept is very easy. You take a value, you substitute it for x, you plug it into the function, and what comes out is the y value. All right, so the last one we'll do here, number 4, is we're going to evaluate functions visually from looking at a picture. Evaluate each expression, here are all the expressions, using the graph of f of x. So here's the function. Now they're showing it to us. Instead of showing it as an equation, all right, they're showing these as equations here. We can also represent a function visually. Now on the side here in part A, it says f of 2 equals question mark. When x equals 2, what's the y value? When we put a 2 into the function, what comes out of that? So we're going to use the graph here. Here's the x values. When x is 2, notice there's a point on the graph. What's the y value of that point? Well, when x is 2, the y value is negative 2. That's it. They give us the x, they ask us for y. What about when x is negative 2? What is the y value? So when x is negative 2, that puts us down here. What's the y value? Negative 3. So I'm looking at the ordered pairs. Now, f of question mark equals negative 4. So now we're missing the x. They tell us the y value. So what value for x gives us a y value of negative 4? Well, let's go to the graph. Now we're going to look at the y values. Here's negative 4. Is there a point on the function when y is negative 4? What about right there? So the question is, what's the x value? Well, we'll kind of trace this. Look at that. So that's 4. So the x is 4. Now, f of negative 4 equals question mark. Now this is the x value. The question is, what's the y value? So now I'm looking at x's. Where's negative 4? Here. Where does this, what y value gives us negative 4? Oh, here's the point on the function. What's the y value? 2. It's kind of cool how you do this, but again, it takes some time to get used to the concept. Part E, f of question mark equals 2. So we're missing the x, but they give us the y. So let's start with the y value of 2. Now positive 2 is here. If we look over, I see a point on the function here. Oh, this is the one we just did, but now they're asking for the x value. X is negative 4. f of 0, so when x is 0, what's the y? Well, when x is 0 here, there's 1 point right there. What's the y value? -2. And the last one, f of question mark, so we don't know the x, but they tell us the y is 0. So the y value is 0 here. Nope, no points, no points, no points. There's a point. Now you look at that, it actually looks between -3 and -4. Let's estimate, I'll say -3.2. If this was on a quiz or a test, I would accept anything that's close to that. If you said -3.1, even if you said -3, I would accept that. Okay, so again, functions can be tricky because people get stuck with the notation, and they also get stuck with how the question is asked. You have to think about, do they want me to find the x value or do they want me to find the y value? Do they give me the x value or do they give me the y value? And remember, the idea though is so simple. We take an x, we substitute it into the function, and what we get out is a y value. And that is the end of the notes.